I'm excited to announce that we have formed the Microgrid Resources Coalition. We're using the abbreviation of MRC, and you'll see the buttons on some of the people around here. The intent is for advocating for microgrids with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the FERC, and the State Public Utility Commissions, or the PUCs. And we're advocating for a lot of the reasons you just heard here on the board or on the panel. I think it was Jim Adams who set up here that we need to change the regulations. And really, that's what we're setting this up for. We want a voice. The other founding members of this advocacy group with me are on stage. Mike Webster and John Webster of IceTech, Ted Borer of Princeton. One member who's not here is Steve Cornelli. He's from NRG. And we have Joe Sullivan of Concord, and Rob, of course, representing IDA. We also have a law firm of Drinkle, Bitter, and Reith. And we have Chris, who's been up on the panel, and Baird Brown down at the end there. We envision, let me just index this. So we envision that ultimately the group will be comprised of representatives from microgrid owners, operators, developers, suppliers, investors, many of which are sitting in this room right now. The group started last spring with an informal gathering of a few of us to talk with the FERC chairman, Wellinghoff, about microgrids. He had several recommendations for us, including speaking with one voice for microgrids. They're hearing from everybody in the world, most of which who don't have experience in microgrids. They need expert opinion. He wanted us to provide meaningful input into the regulatory process. So he wants really good guidance, and that's what we formed this coalition to develop the guidance. And he wanted us to talk with the rest of the FERC commissioners. This was a real surprise for us going down to DC to find out not only was Wellinghoff on board with us, he wanted us to talk to his whole commission. So throughout the summer, we spoke to the other four FERC commissioners. And as Rob was alluding to, it's important to take them on a tour of your facility. We gave a tour to one of the FERC commissioners of our facility last summer. So they're all very receptive to our ideas for microgrids, and they want more detailed information. So in the fall, we started the process of pulling together a coalition, which we are announcing here. This coalition will provide formal input into the FERC and the state PUC regulatory processes. So let me briefly point out what we are not. So we're not in competition or a diversion for IDEA. Many of us are longstanding IDEA members and want the MRC to complement the workings of district energy. We don't want to compete with IDEA. MRC will not have conferences or trade shows. Our focus is on advocacy and not technology. The MRC is completely technology agnostic. So we're not advocating microgrids for batteries or microgrids for CHP. We're doing it for all the technologies. We probably won't have any educational webinars, which I get 2 or 3 a week, announcements about them, all the time. And we probably won't have an MRC magazine. So we're strictly an advocacy group. We do have a website for communications, and we do hold regular meetings. We will have working groups to develop these policies so that they're very informed from the users who know what they're doing. And then we'll propose regulatory recommendations to the PUCs and the FERC. So the MRC is needed because we need a seat at the table when regulation proposals are being discussed. We need a voice, and we don't have that right now. Within an RTO, there are different classes of assets. These include generation owners, both independent and utility-related, transmission owners, renewables, energy efficiency, and demand response people. Each of these classes of assets provides a service, and they get revenue for that service. We want the same treatment for microgrids. Smart microgrids can be an important fully integrated market participant, and that's what Mike was alluding to in the panel earlier. Important because of the generative and the thermal flexibility. Again, thermal is always a big part of this. They can provide multiple services, and they can do it simultaneously And secondly, they can do it very, very efficiently. The smart grid application is a higher level participant than demand response, just starting an emergency generator. You know, we're better than that. We're more efficient. Smart grids can provide dispatchable energy. They can provide the ancillary services, such as sync reserve and frequency regulation, as well as capacity. Smart grids can also provide important support to the local power distribution and reliability to critical loads, while also providing the benefits to the grid. MRC is needed now because of the interest that FERC, DOE, and many of the state PUCs are showing toward microgrids. These powerful organizations are looking for ways to incent microgrid deployment. They want to do it. They just need to be told how. They need to hear from the experts in this room. We believe that an organized voice that can speak to the FERC and to the RTOs on dynamic responsiveness of microgrids will result in additional revenue streams by more favorable treatment in energy and the aux services markets. We believe an organized voice in discussions with PUCs on the community benefits of having localized, resilient resources that continue operating through natural disasters and distribution failures will lead to more favorable rate structures, meaning cost savings and revenue generation for the things that we already do well now. And it is these goals that will be the focus of our resources, trying to realize more revenues and cost savings in recognition of the benefits of widespread deployment of microgrid technologies. We need to speak with one voice. We need strength in numbers, and there is a lot of work to be done in crafting white papers and policy recommendations. The FERC process is very complex, and it takes knowledge and experience to navigate their commission to get results. The MRC will provide all these benefits, and there will be economies of scale of many people participating. So a cautionary example. There are many powerful state, federal, and local organizations that are seeing the value of microgrids, and they want more. They want to incent more. They want to increase the payback for the equipment and technologies we're already invested in. A great example of this is the FERC Order 745 that said if you have the ability to ramp up generation in response to the RTO conditions in the hours that you choose, there should be revenues available to you. You are providing energy to the grid, same as generators that are in front of the fence. So you should be paid just like generators as long as you can provide a cost-effective solution. This was a really good thing for us. Now, how this opportunity has been implemented depends on policies at the RTO level, which we currently do not have a voice in. So the RTOs are pushing back on the intent of the FERC regulation at our detriment. So a cautionary example is that PJM, that's where we're located, is largely influenced by generation, which prefers to sell power without additional competition. And the PJM interpretation reduces our eligibility to participate in the highest price hours. So the generators really don't want us to play in this game, the central generators. The distributed generation represents a threat to them. So by making us ineligible to participate in high price hours when the system needs us most, PJM interpretation will have the effect of reducing revenue to microgrids 30 to 60%. For microgrids of our size, 15 to 20 megawatts, this is $500,000 to $1 million of lost revenue every year. There's similar problems in the New York ISO, New England, and other regional markets. So this is a prime example of revenues that we are entitled to, but without an organized voice, the existing players kill these opportunities. The MRC is an organized voice in the discussion trying to preserve and promote these sorts of revenue opportunities to transform our existing and planned assets into cost savings and profit generation centers for our campuses. So, the MRC goals: to accelerate the development of microgrids, define microgrids and their services accurately in federal and state regulatory schemes. Right now, there are many organizations talking about microgrids, including traditional utilities, trade journals, politicians. Um, none of them have the experience that you have here. It would be in our best interest to not only be part of that discussion, but to lead it, due to our experience in owning and operating microgrids for decades. So we seek fair compensation for the value we create. As mentioned in the previous slide, we seek fair compensation for microgrid value. If we don't participate in the current discussions at FERC and the state PUCs, then of course there will be very little compensation for microgrids. They won't care. We want to help reinvent reliability planning to take advantage of microgrid services, and we want to help define the grid business model of the future. So our urgency. Now is a tipping point for microgrids. Rob alluded to this a little earlier, that it's currently a hot topic. Hot topics don't stay hot very long. If the experts that were developing microgrids before microgrids were popular, before there was a term of microgrid, do not organize a voice in the process, the discussion will be run by the current classes within the RTOs, some of which are threatened by wide-scale rollout of microgrids, and none of which have collective knowledge of microgrids like you. The traditional players with organized voices, the independent generators, the traditional utilities, the transmission owners, will not have microgrids in mind when they sit down with the commissioners, which they do. Now is the time to jump in with our microgrid coalition, because there are other organizations starting to take an interest in microgrids. This includes friendly interest from enthusiastic and inexperienced folks in federal, state, and local governments. These people want to help, but they don't understand microgrids. We want to define the process and not let others do it for us. We don't want microgrids to be defined by utilities as a diesel with an extension cord, as Rob had mentioned earlier. The people in this audience and up at this podium represent years of experience in design, financing, building, and operating microgrids. You should be helping to define the future regulations of microgrids. So we will do well by doing good, by bringing about a better grid that fully utilizes the capabilities of microgrids. It's a win-win for the grid and a win for the microgrids. So we need your help in this process, and I invite you to participate in the Microgrid Resources Coalition. So to sum up, as Wayne Gretzky observed, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Or in our case, we will miss out on 100% of the microgrid benefits if we don't take a shot at participating in the regulatory process. So I thank you for listening, and I invite questions or comments to the board and myself.